So what we're doing this morning, we're talking about our theme of our talk, name of our talk is five steps to thrive. And we're talking about affirmative prayer this morning. And we're going to kind of take you on a little bit of a wild trip down the rabbit hole, if you will, in a manner of speaking, by talking about directed affirmative prayer. And what's going to be really fun this morning, for us at least, we'll see if it's fun for you too, is that both Reverend Mary Beth and I are going to do this talk together. It's something. Well, we'll see. You might want to hold your applause. But thank you. We used to, during our 14 years as co-pastors together in our churches, we used to about once every month or two, we would do what we call a twofer. And it was always a little bit of a wild ride and a surprise, but wonderful. And so that's what we're doing this morning. And I'm just going to introduce both of us for those of you who don't know us. Reverend Mary Beth Speer is my wife, and we've been co-pastors together. We're actually ordained religious science ministers since 1998. And we've had two ministries, two churches we did together, one in California that we started, and one here in DuPage, which was DuPage Center for Spiritual Living, that we stopped doing that about, it was about 12 years ago. And since that time, we periodically guest speak, mostly Mary Beth, and Mary Beth teaches classes. Many of you know Monday Morning Metaphysics. It's a mouthful. Monday Morning Metaphysics, the 3 M's we call it, and she's been doing that for years. So I'm going to just invite up my wonderful wife, Reverend Mary Beth Speer. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, this has been a really long time since we did a twofer, so it was a little bit interesting getting used to doing it again.
Yeah, it will be interesting.
We don't have just one mind. I mean, there is only one mind, but we all individualize that one mind. And we're two very individual minds.
I always say that her half brain and my half brain makes a full brain.
That's right.
For those of you who are couples, you probably know what I mean.
So here's what we wanted to do. Michael mentioned we have been ordained religious science ministers, and the teaching in religious science is called the science of mind. You've probably heard that. Actually, the original teaching was called the science of mind and spirit. And what science of mind taught was the nature of life and the study of the laws of thought. So what we love teaching science of mind. We love teaching treatment. We always say if there was something really better that we could teach, we'd teach it. But we have found that it is one of the most impactful, effective ways to work with principle and to actually not just say pretty words, but to realize that we are a law unto ourselves, speaking unto a principle, through a principle, and we are activating the very nature of life to move from one thing to another thing. Now, you guys, we're always doing it. You do it all the time. You got up this morning, you started thinking, and the tendency of your thinking, the tendency of your beliefs, what you think about, you bring about. We teach that in Unity. In fact, third principle. Third principle is what? Anybody want to shout it out there? Thoughts held in mind, produce in kind. And thoughts held in mind, produced in kind is also about our subjectified thoughts and beliefs. Now, the really beautiful thing is you're not cast in stone. You are able to think differently. And when we think differently, what we think about, we change. You've probably heard this. Change your thinking, change your life. So the thing about treatment is it's kind of a really more fast and effective way to bring about change in your consciousness so that you become a reciprocal match for that which you want to bring into your life. And we're going to explain all that. But what I thought I would do first and foremost is two things. Number one, I want to define principle for you. And some of you might already have this wonderful book called The 5 Principles. It was written by one of the more prolific Unity ministers, Ellen Davenport. And she did such a cool job of explaining what a principle is. I just thought I'd read it to you. She says, a principle is a rule or law that never changes. It applies to all people everywhere all the time. And then she uses a cool example. She said, we learned this as children. 2 + 2 = 4. Anywhere, at any time, by anybody, no respecter of race or creed or age or anything. It just is always going to work. Your answer never depends on whether you're good or bad. It never depends on what you ate for dinner the night before. It will always be the same. And if it comes out something other than 2 + 2 is 4, the law is working perfectly. It's we that are not working perfectly. And I love teaching science of mind ideas. I love teaching about law because we're always working with laws. And the thing about laws is they all work the same all the time. So depending on how well we know a law or know about principle, we can make it work for us. And I often use examples like in contrast. I'll tell students, there's this magnificent law of electricity. It's always been there. I mean, it was been there when the pyramids were built. Nobody knew it. And now we know about it. But if I get up in the morning and I take out my toaster and I plug it into that law of electricity and then try to dry my hair, it's probably not going to work really well. But that's a misuse of law. Do you see that? So part of it is what we work on is the idea that when we think differently and in a more effective way, we work in concert with laws of mind and we can bring about things in a more deliberate, intentional, loving, and life-affecting ways. So the other reason that we're talking up here today, we decided to do this, is because of the date. It's the 7th, right? 7th of May. So tomorrow will be May 8th, and it will be 28 years since the day that Michael and I met at a spiritual conference in California. And It's really funny. We almost forget to celebrate our anniversary, our wedding anniversary, but we always remember this one. And the thing about this one that makes it so potent is it really came about because of treatment. Michael and I he lived in Chicago, I lived in California back in 1995. But both of us were going to the same spiritual retreat, which was in the beautiful area of Monterey called Pacific Grove at Asilomar conference grounds, gorgeous grounds, really beautiful. Anyway, and they're right on the ocean, just very romantic. So I go with my church up to Asilomar. Michael comes from Chicago to Asilomar. And here's the deal. I had been planting the seed of consciousness in treatment for my RPM for a while. We single people in the church at that time were all kind of on the RPM thing. That stands for right in perfect mate. So we're all going, and people in religious science are called practitioners. Here they're called prayer chaplains. But there we were practitioners. And the woman that I went to on Good Friday that year was a wonderful woman who became ultimately our head practitioner of the church we created. But my wonderful friend Nancy, I went to her on that day and I said, I want to meet my RPM and I'm ready. I know I'm ready. I mean, I knew I was a vibrational match. I just needed that seed to get planted. Nancy treated with me. Treatment is the name we're working with, a spiritual mind treatment. And we're going to talk about what that means. So she did this effective spiritual mind treatment on that day. And less than a month later, I met Michael. First morning in the breakfast line, I knew I was going to marry him before we sat down for bacon. Yeah?
Best scrambled eggs I ever had.
It was a miracle. Okay, so what is a miracle? A miracle is a changed mind. Mira, you see things differently. I was ready. I was a vibrational match. I didn't know how. I didn't know any of that because here's the deal. You know what? And if you get out of the way, God knows how. So our job is to plant seeds, not to grow seeds. And anybody who's a gardener knows you can't dive in the soil after the seed, right? Okay, so the other funny one we want to tell, and then we'll get into some of what this is. That night, we were together the whole day, like Velcro. I mean, it was like, boom, And that night, we went walking out by the ocean, and we're on the rocks. Love on the rocks. Anyway, we're on the rocks, and we're talking and getting to know each other, and, the whole, all of you have been in love, you know that feeling. beautiful moon, everything's so pretty, no idea what time it is, and it gets really late. And all of a sudden, we start walking down the path, and it's dark now. And we realize we don't know where we are. We don't know how to get back. Yeah. So Michael says the magic words to me that just opened my heart. He said, "Let's treat." I went, oh! I had never had a man say "let's treat" in my life. So he surely did that, and we're going to teach you some of the steps of how you do that. Anyway, so he said, "Let's treat," and he did. And about a second later, we turned around, and it was like there was a phantom phone booth right there that we had not seen. This is back in the days of phone booths. Yeah,
lit up
in the middle of the dark. Now, at this point, we look at each other and go, okay, that was a demonstration, and now, do we want to be found? So the answer was yes, and we looked up in the phone book. We found a taxi driver who came like some kind of a strange creature in the middle of the night, even looked strange. He looked at us very strangely, picks us up, literally drove us around the corner to the entrance.
Yeah.
But treatment worked. Okay, so we've talked a little bit here about what laws are. You know, the thing about laws, there's laws of mathematics. There's laws of electricity. There's laws of gravity. You know, there's all these laws. And the thing about laws is they are impartial. They work all the time. They are invisible, but you can see evidence of them. Okay? And they work for everyone. I always said that, no respecter of persons. They are constant and unchanging. And the key is here when it comes to the mental, spiritual laws of how life works. You are using them all the time. You always have been. It's just when you wake up to how they work and then begin to apply them, it's amazing because you genuinely can see the connection between the speaking of your word and what we call a demonstration. You know, you're always manifesting. We're always manifesting through our thoughts and beliefs and how we think about in the recurrent way we think. Thoughts that are heartfelt, owned, and clear are the ones that are going to more or less show up because those are the ones we believe. It's a lot about changing our mind. And so one of the main principles about change is, Jesus said it. What did he say? He said, life is done unto you as you believe. And the as you believe part is our freedom. Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, made the statement, he said, you are bound because you are first free. The very power that appears to bind you is the power that can free you because it is done unto you as you believe. So the only limitation we actually have in a limitless world, which is number one principle, God is all there is. That's our number one unity principle. The only limitation that we have in that is believing that there's limitation, believing that it stops. Well, the amazing thing is that principle is not bound by whatever came before it. It's ever fresh and ever new, which means when we can think anew, when we can think a new thought, and we can start to really feel that thought with fervor, we can bring about something different. Okay, I think I already covered that. We got a little paper jam here between the two notebooks. So what we want to do first and foremost is actually compare how a treatment works to what Jesus the teacher taught about how we work with things. And can we get our first slide? There we go. Okay, so let me get my sheet notes out so I'm not turning around. Where are they? Oh, they're over here. Wait, hold that. Hold that, talk among yourself.
I told you it would be interesting, right?
There we go.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so treatment, that can be a confusing word. Treatment is short term for spiritual mind treatment. So let's elevate this up. All treatment is prayer. Spiritual mind treatment is a form of prayer. It's what we call directive affirmative prayer. Pretty much what unity teaches too. Unity teaches directive affirmative prayer. What that means is it's directed towards a specific purpose. Not just sitting. Many of us might have grown up with beseeching God, right? Begging God. Oh my God, please help me. Directed affirmative prayer is different. We're speaking in the affirmative, what it is we desire, and we're directing it for a specific purpose. We call it directed affirmative prayer. And of that, spiritual mind treatment is just the type that we use in religious science. It's a form. Pardon me? Can we give us an example?
Yeah, we're about to go into it, and then you're going to actually have your own examples before we're done.
You're going to get the cookbook today, and we're going to lay out 5 steps of treatment. We've spent years. I've spent 35 years studying this, so we're giving you a good high-level picture today of what that is. We're also providing you with a takeaway today that's out on the table, which are the 5 steps of treatment we're going to be talking about, and it's a worksheet that you can use for yourself. Our goal is when you leave here today, yes, there are wonderful prayer chaplains here at Unity. There are wonderful religious science practitioners. But you can treat for yourself. You can pray for yourself. It was exactly what the teacher Jesus said. These things that I do, this and even greater shall you do. What he meant is, go pray. Use this stuff. So we're giving you basically a quick recipe, a cookbook, a simple way to use it and apply it in your own life for anything having to do with health, relationships, finances, money, creative expression, your work, other people in your life that you may be having issues. So that's what you're going to get today, and we're going to give it, again, as much as we can give you within the confines of this service. Spiritual mind treatment.
Yeah, one of the things we always say is that all treatment, spiritual mind treatment, is prayer. It's a form of prayer. It's a tool. Not all prayer is treatment. Some prayer is simply meditation. Some prayers you probably have said are penitent, like pleasing God. And what spiritual mind treatment is an activity. It's an active use of mind in a sequential, directed way, using principle that's pretty much consistent with the principles of unity. It starts with the understanding that God is all there is. And we work a lot with what does that mean? Because God is not something out there. God is everywhere. It's in everywhere. It's absolutely boundless. It's absolutely limitless. Its nature is pure good. And our second principle in unity is we're one with that. So in treatment, and we're going to go over this in a minute, in treatment, we start with that. We start with working with the concept of the limitless infinitude of divine intelligence, whatever words we want to use for God. We can call it source. We call it God, but sometimes that God word sounds like something outside of ourselves. But God is also within ourselves. Yes? Spiritual mind treatment is prayer. Yeah, it is prayer. All spiritual mind treatment is prayer, but not all prayer is treatment. And spiritual mind treatment is an active prayer. It's not a passive prayer. Now, the first step of treatment, we're going to go over these in a minute. Well, actually, let me go ahead and tell you the way Jesus taught it, okay? Jesus taught, if we want to plant a garden, he taught sowing and reaping, remember? So if you want to plant a garden, first and foremost, you have to know that there is a garden and there are things to plant. It's all available through divine intelligence. So there you've got your garden. You can plant anything in your garden that you can conceive of. So if you go to the big Burpees seed store of life, you get to choose what seed it is you want to plant. And you don't go there to plant rutabagas and think you're going to get daisies. You plant what you want. Intentionally planting a little bitty seed is actually your daisy. It just is, you haven't seen it yet. Okay? The same thing as a seed idea. When we plant a seed idea of something we desire to experience in mind, that's a seed. Now, what do we plant it into? We plant it into soil. Now, here's the thing. Soil in this model is the law. It is a principle of life that renders what you put into it. So in the soil, planting the seed, that burpee seed, is the way you do it. Now, you do not make the seed come about, do you? You don't make the seed grow. You allow it to grow. You put it in there, you do everything you know on how to do it. You basically work with the principles of watering it, doing whatever you need to do. And if you have doubt and fear, maybe you water the doubt and fear. But that seed is in the ground. And you're not going to see evidence as a seed anymore. Because what's going to come out of it's going to be the effect. It's going to be producing some kind of flower. Now, if you get a weed, that means you planted a weed. It didn't just show up there. It's like somehow, without really knowing, you planted something you didn't intend. Does that make sense? So seed, soil, plant. It's the threefold nature of life. So in terms of your idea, when you have a new idea of something you want to experience, you want to have the experience of something new, and maybe it's a relationship, like mine was. Maybe it's a trip you've never gone somewhere before and you didn't even know you could do that. Maybe it's a seed of health, that you want better health. Maybe it's about prosperity and you want to have an expanded experience of abundance. And basically, those are the four sides of life that we live in, okay? So we're almost always having some kind of an energy and activity around our relationships, around creative expression, around health, or around our feeling of being prosperous and abundant. So that generally is where we pick the seeds from. What do we want to start? What do we want to make happen? Okay.
I want to shorthand that for you, too, as Mary Beth is talking about the law. The law we refer to as the law of mind. It is done unto you as you believe. We've heard that, right? That was from the teacher Jesus. It is done unto you as you believe. It is done unto me as I believe. What I believe is what I'm going to bring about. I'm not always aware of what I'm believing in, but I'm not aware consciously, but I can tell what I'm believing in truly by what's showing up in my life. Because I'm not bound by what's going on out there. I'm creating. I'm not separate from life. That's a key part of this. I'm not separate from God. There's only one. I'm always creating through my thoughts and beliefs about life, and what's showing up is what's going on within me, and I have the power and ability to change that. That's what directed affirmative prayer is about. That's what treatment is about.
Thank you.
Go to the next slide.
Yeah. Well, all I was going to say is now in the model and in the preparation for teaching the steps of treatment, in this model, if you look, we give thanks for the principle of sowing and reaping. You can give thanks for that. You can be grateful knowing that this works and build your faith around it. And then also to have the faith and the gratitude, the assurance that this divine intelligence knows what it's doing and what you planted will come forth. And with patience and with the faith that you have, watering with faith, tending it, fertilizing, whatever you're going to do to keep that seed happy in the soil as the soil replicates for you and brings forth for you that which you desire. That's when we get what we call a demonstration. Okay, so that's a simple model of it, okay? And now let's go to this next slide.
Okay, so we're going to take you just through these 5 steps. And again, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but we're also I'm going to forewarn you, when we get into meditation today, you're going to get to practice this a little bit. We're going to actually integrate it, so you'll get to walk away with actually doing a little bit of prayer for yourself today, which is a great thing to do since you're in a church today, right? I think we do prayer here, right? First step of treatment is recognition, and it's basically in alignment with the first principle of unity. We recognize that God is absolute good, infinite, and everywhere present. God is all there is. We recognize that it's all based, like all prayer really, is based that there is one God, period. And it's very much rooted in directed affirmative prayer and what we do in unity and what we do in religious science. We call this new thought, that everything is based by God. Now, you may go out sometimes and you'll see lots of things if you look at The Secret, or you follow maybe even the law of attraction from the Hicks, Abraham, teachings of Abraham. Very good. Those are tools to work with. The important part about what we do in unity and religious science, in my opinion, is that we root it all back to the divine intelligence. Always coming back to that, because that's where all the work is done. As Mary Beth said in the analogy, we plant the seeds, God grows the tree. So it's not you and I that have to figure it all out. And I don't know about you, I try to figure things out once in a while. I spent most of my life trying to do that, right? We sometimes call it forcing, coercing, trying to push things along. And it's not me that does the work. In treatment, what we're doing, and we're going to talk about that, we turn it over to the intelligence of the universe. And all we're doing here is we're giving a systematic way of doing it. Could we go to the next slide?
Okay, the next step of treatment, first step was recognition, recognizing the allness and the oneness with God. The second step of treatment is recognizing that if God is all there is, God is infinite, its nature is pure goodness, all the qualities, the beneficent qualities of God have to be true of me. Why? Because I can't be outside of God. There's an amazing statement that's said over and over again that says, God is a sphere whose circumference is nowhere and whose center is everywhere. The idea of God being all there is and you being one with that, you yourself are center of the universe. Right where you are, God is. And that is a really potent place to start speaking your word. So that's those two steps. Step one, recognizing the allness of God. Step two, recognizing my oneness with it. And now I speak my word. In the Bible it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so that becomes step three. Those two steps, by the way, are a lot like meditation. They're a wonderful place to meditate. And it's said that if you can just do those two, you don't even need the other three steps because you're already there.
Could we go to the next slide, please? So the next step of treatment is declaration. Remember I said directed affirmative prayer. It's directed because we're always directing it towards something. If we don't put out to the universe what it is we desire, what are we going to get back? We're going to get back whatever we're carrying around in our subjectified thoughts and beliefs, our subconscious mind, some of which is very old stuff. I may not even be aware of what I'm carrying around. So it's up to you and I, if you choose to do so, to change our thinking about life, and in so doing, change what's going on. We do that by declaring what good it is we desire. I'll give you just a couple of brief examples of this. I'll go off of Mary Beth's story. Some years later, after we met, we got married. I was in Oak Park, moved out to California. We were still doing our studies in religious science. We decided we wanted to go on into ministerial studies. Now, in the case of Religious Science International, Unity, you go to Unity Village. At least they used to do it like that. In Religious Science International, you had to choose a particular church that was teaching it at the time, a 2-year course for the ministerial training. This was after the prior 3 or 4 years we were studying. So we decided there was a church up here in Oak Park. It was my home church. We said, let's move back to Oak Park. They were offering the training for the next 2 years. And we said, let's move back. We were living in Burbank, California at the time with our son, who was 12 years old at the time. We said, let's move back here. We got accepted into the class. We had a friend up here. She went and found a house for us in River Forest. We rented it from across the country, didn't even see it. We rented this house. We started making plans. We put our condo up for sale in California. We sold our condo. We're getting ready to move. In the meantime, Mary Beth's former husband, who was the father of our 12-year-old son, decided he did not want us to leave and took us to court. So we went through, this was 2 weeks before we were ready to move. We went through all sorts of angst about it. Remember I said before about trying to push things and force things. We said, well, we're supposed to go. We already rented this house. We sold our condo. What are we going to do? We ended up going into this court battle, so to say. And at some point in time, in the process, we were treating all the time. We were doing prayer. And what were we treating for? We were treating for not to live in Oak Park or River Forest or not to move back here. I'm from Chicago. It wasn't about that. We were treating for the right and perfect training for ministry. That was what we were putting into this third step of treatment. That was our goal. What happened is Mary Beth and I sat down one day, we looked at each other and said, what about if we don't go? Period. Crazy idea. We're caught up in this thing of trying to go, right? You ever been there? We got to go this. We got to do this. We said, what if we don't go? We said, okay. What happened is we ended up getting into, by the grace of God, literally, there was a training in Palm Desert, California, a minister by the name of Dr. Tom Costa, who was amazing. His class was filled up. He said, I don't think I have room for you. And we sent him roses. We prayed. We treated. And sure enough, all of a sudden, he said, well, 2 people just dropped out of the class, so I have room for you. And so that's what we did. We stayed in California. We ended up going out to Palm Desert every Saturday morning for 2 years, and that's where we got our ministerial license, and we ended up starting our first church out in California in a town called Sierra Madre. I tell you that story because that's how this works. Sometimes we put out into the universe what it is we desire, but what's key about this is we thought we were hooked on to we had to move back here. That really wasn't what it was we desired. So the key in this 3rd step of treatment about declaring what it is you desire is, number 1, getting clear on it and treating what is the feeling I desire. It's not just about the things, it's about the feeling. We want to have this great experience. If it happens to be in a relationship, and Mary Beth treated for a relationship, and she demonstrated me. I don't know if I existed before that. I'm her demonstration. But I showed up in that breakfast line that morning. She treated for the qualities of the relationship. She didn't treat for me. She didn't know me. She chose well, I guess, but... and I should say I chose one because I was the lucky one. So we found the love of each other's lives. But that was through the act of doing that work. It was the mental work that we did that let this so-called law of attraction bring us together. So the key here is getting clear on what it is you desire to have in your life. What is the feeling, whether it happens to be in relationships, in your work, creative expression, prosperity, anything else that you're working with, okay? And health, expression of health. How do I want to feel in my body? Do I want to feel free and strong and vibrant in my body and form? When we do treatment, I'm just going to tell you a few things about this, and I'll remind you, we do have a worksheet that I invite you to take out on the desk. And for those of you online, it is going to be on the Unity website. You can get to it. And we have the sheet already posted, I believe. Is that right, Parker? I think it's already out there, so you can get to that same worksheet. And it's something you can literally take. I invite you to take it home, play with it, make copies of it. You can actually work with it. And we're going to go through it a bit today. A few key things. Did you want to say something?
In that illustration that Michael gave you, and you've probably had times like that in your life where you're really fixated on how you think it needs to look. And we were really, 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 really sure we were supposed to move back to Illinois. What's real fascinating about that is we'd done a mind map early on when we first started out wanting to demonstrate our church. We had done a mind map. Anybody ever done those, where it's either with words or pictures or whatever, right? So we had this mind map, and I got it out after we realized we were really pretty stuck, because it was really stuck. I mean, we couldn't move forward, and, in that situation. It didn't say anything about Illinois. It didn't say anything about Chicago. It didn't say anything about moving. It just said we wanted this experience. And we had defined the feeling nature of how we wanted to feel. And we defined the quality of the teaching that we wanted to get. We had no idea that we would wind up being taught by a paragon in Religious Science International, who didn't even have space in his class at the time when we actually thought about it. So the reason I mention that at this point is because when we do our affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, at step 3, declaration, we want to say this or something even greater. Because that takes the lid off what we can see and allows the infinitude of divine mind to flow in even greater ways than we may not have been able to see. Okay.
Sorry, well, if you're treating for a new house, a new place to live, don't lock the universe in. It's easy to do that. I want that house, and I'm going to pray for that house, that specific house. What are the qualities you want to experience in that house? What do you want to feel? See yourself in that house, and that's where your prayer work goes. And let the universe kick in this I want this house or something greater. We have that in our treatments, in our prayer quite often. The other thing is when you're doing treatment work, when you're doing prayer work, we recommend doing it in the first person, always using the I statement. Why is that? Because you're not treating anyone else's consciousness, you're treating your own consciousness. And that's why I said we were taking you a little bit down the rabbit hole today, because that's what it sounds like. I'm working on me to change my thought about life so that I can change what's going on out there. I don't have to change anything out there. And by the way, if you think you can, you can't anyways. Anyone ever try to change another person? How'd that work for you? But what you can do is we can change ourselves. I can change who I am and change what I want to have happen in life, and then everything out there will work around, okay? People will come, people will go, but that's how this works. So let's bring up the next slide. We're going to just go through the next 2 steps very quickly. This is an important step, Thanksgiving. Why is that? I always say that the teacher, Jesus, that was his primary 1 step of treatment. He would just give thanks. Why? Because he was already living in the consciousness, in my opinion, of what I know of him. He was living in the consciousness that there's only one God and that he's one with God. So he would look at something or someone and say, hey, I don't see you as being crippled. I see you as able to move. I see you as able to walk. And I give thanks to the Father for this. Thank you, God. When we give thanks, I usually give thanks for something on a physical level. We give thanks for, thank you for the gift you just gave me. Thank you for the promotion. Thank you for being in my life. That means that we're giving thanks for something that already exists. And that's a big key to doing directive affirmative prayer, for doing treatment, is we are affirming that something already exists. Why? Because everything already exists in the universe, everything. For every problem you have, the solution already exists. What we want to do through spiritual mind treatment, through prayer, any type of prayer, is bring it in to our expression. So that's what we're doing. We're changing our thinking to be in harmony, to be in the same wavelength, the same frequency with that which we desire. So I give thanks for the good that's already coming into my life that I know is already mine. We have the next slide, please.
The last step is let go. Just let go and go about in quiet assurance that which you desire is already done. One of the most important things about affirmative mind treatment, spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer, whatever you want to call it, it's treating your mind in a new and genuine way. Doing that, you want to always, when you're working in treatment, be talking from the present moment. You don't say, I look forward to. You would say, I now accept. In affirmative mind, I keep saying the words. In spiritual mind treatment, you want to use words like, I accept, I declare, I decree. There's one. I now know. But you keep it in the present tense. And the reason for that is because if you can conceive of it at some level, science says it now exists. You just haven't seen it yet. So the energy with which you pray in spiritual mind treatment is from the demonstration, not for the demonstration. You see the difference? It creates a whole different energy. It creates a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum and wants to fill your vacuum. So it's about being able to just let go and let God. So I'm going to show you real quickly, and then Michael's actually going to take you through a process. But if you want to put your hand out, we teach this to the kids in religious science churches. You take 5 to thrive right on your hand. Okay? Step 1, look at your thumb. This is God. This is all there is. And this is reminding, it's all there is. And now that finger, that index, tap it to your thumb. You are one. You are one with that. 3rd step, right in the middle, is declare, speak your word, what it is you now accept for yourself. 4th step, your ring finger, that's gratitude. That's Thanksgiving. And the 5th step is, as the kids say, over and out. 5 to thrive. You've got it with you all the time. Just help you remember. You can even write it down on your fingers.
Okay.
I'm going to now step down and you're going to take over, right?
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Sure.
what we're going to do is I'm going to do our meditation now, but I'm going to have a part where you can participate in it. And I know we're running a little bit over, so I thank you for indulging that today. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on the meditation part. I'm going to do the 5 steps of treatment, which, by the way, if you ever listen to any of my meditation, they really are the 5 steps of treatment. That's my standard form I use. I'm going to go through and I'm going to speak in meditation the first 2 steps of treatment. When we get to the 3rd step, I'm going to set it up for us, but then I'm going to invite you to speak. And when I say speak, you could do it out loud, you could do it silently to yourself, you could whisper it, what it is you desire to demonstrate. 3rd step, again, declaration. I declare that which I desire for myself, stated in that first person. So I declare this. So I, right now, know that I have the right and perfect transportation in my life if you're looking for a new car. I know right now that there is health expressing in my life, that this individual in my life is healthy and complete and provided for in every way. I know I have plenty of resources and prosperity in my life. Whatever it is you want, just to put it in very simple terms, does not need to be eloquent. But when I get to that point in this prayer, I'm going to invite you to just speak out loud. We've done this with groups of people before. It's kind of funny. You can speak it out loud if you want. If you're shy, you can whisper, or you can just say it to yourself. So I just invite you just to get comfortable, if you will, and allow yourself to be present in this now moment. And as I go through and speak these steps of treatment, I will speak which step we're in, actually, just for your benefit, and knowing that everything is moving in perfect form right now. So I accept and know right now in this first step of treatment that there is only one intelligence, God, and that God is expressing in perfect form through and as me right now. I am always knowing that this one power surrounds me, infuses me, uplifts me. In this second step, I affirm and know that I am one with Spirit. Never separate, always a part of it. Always have been and always will be. And I know that the same is true of each of you and for each and every person in this universe. There is not a spot where God is not, and I know that each and every one of us is one with it. So on the level of this expression, this knowingness of unity, I accept that I am one with each and every person. I live in a universe of absolute unity. And as I begin speaking this 3rd step of treatment, the declaration, I start by knowing that this intelligence is an intelligence of good. God is good all the time. So I know that this universe is infinite, that everything that could exist does exist. And as I speak my word this morning, I do it in the knowingness that everything I could possibly desire and ask for is possible and already present. And I know that my word is powerful and always connected to God. Each of our words is powerful. Whether we're speaking this prayer for the first time or for the 10,000th time makes no difference, because I'm one in spirit. So right now, I invite you to bring into your mind something that you desire to express in your life, knowing that you're expressing it from the feeling. What is the feeling I desire? What do I wish to have expressed in my life? And knowing that this or greater is possible through God. So I invite you right now, either out loud or silently, to speak your word for this step of treatment. I know right now that there is a perfect expression taking place within this day for each and every person in my life, and I am blessed in it. stay present with that feeling. What does it feel like to be in that demonstration of good? See it as here and now, and know that Spirit is always acting upon this word in perfect form. There is no request that is too big or too small for God. This is my birthright. I know that I have the right and ability to speak my word and ask for whatever it is I desire. So in this fourth step of treatment, I give thanks by saying, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, Spirit, for the good that is already mine. I accept and know that this is unfolding in perfect form in my life already. And finally, I release this word to Spirit. I let go and let God, knowing that the seed that I have just planted is completely and fully acted upon right here and right now. I let Spirit do its work and grow this tree. And we join together in this knowingness by saying, and so it is. Amen.